Hi.
Hi, people of Earth. We are back with another podcast.
Woohoo. And we are excited. I did the Wonder Woman before we got started today, so I'm ready to go. So, Jeff, we always ask our guests if they've ever attended a summer camp because our podcast is Campfire. So obviously they're vaguely connected.
Yes.
So I want to know, have you ever been to summer camp and what was it?
I've been to sports themed, mostly basketball summer camps.
Mm-hmm.
The one that stands out in my mind the most is that my grandparents used to live in the Adrian area. Actually, they lived in Onstead, I think. Okay. And me and my brother every year would go to Camp of Champions at Siena Heights.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Ann Smart, who lives in the Adrian area, but will be really upset that I went to camp at Siena Heights and not Adrian College. And that was such a hard camp. Like, I loved basketball, but that was like almost too much basketball. And I was a nervous kid. So like there was a lot of eyes on me when we were doing, or at least my perception was that all eyes are on you when you're doing drills and skills and everything like that. So I remember a lot of anxiety, but I remember really digging the chocolate milk in the cafeteria for lunch. And right. I got to get new basketball shoes every summer before that camp. The greatest part of this, and this isn't really campy, but we got to stay with my grandparents for a week. My grandfather was my hero, my inspiration to be an educator. He was a superintendent and a social studies teacher in the district that eventually I would be a teacher in. So that was the longest stretches of time that I got to spend with him. And so those are the memories that kind of stick out in my head. Not only just camp memories, but memories in general as a kid.
That's cool. That's very cool.
How about you?
Yeah,
Were you a campy person?
My experience is very similar. I was an athletics camp. I did a lot of basketball camp. I did Camp of Champions, but my Camp of Champions was in Traverse City because I'm a Northern Michigan girl. And it's funny that you say like all eyes were on you because I remember, like they picked teams, they put you on teams. And the camp director was watching a game and I went up for a left-handed layup and just totally missed it. And my coach was like...
Left-handed layups were like the most anxiety-ridden drill things.
And it still sticks with me. He's like, you should have faked an injury after you missed it. He's like, that would have been better. I'm like, thanks for that self-esteem booster. But yeah, that's mine too. And in fact... one of the camps that I went to, with a bunch of girls from a neighboring city that was the town that my parents were from and where my grandparents lived. So I have that experience too of getting to spend a little bit of extra time with my grandparents because of that. So how funny.
That is crazy. And even like down to the name of the camp.
Yeah. That's apparently if you name something Camp of Champions, that people will come. We should name our professional development of champions. Blended learning for champions.
Yeah. Did they do awards and things like that? I always remember Camper of the Day, and then at the end of the camp, they tried to give as many awards away as they could, and you got like little trinkets and things like that. I still have a lot of those trinkets.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that was like one of the coolest parts, even though they were nothing, but just cool to be recognized, right?
Well, the coolest part was that at Siena Heights Fieldhouse, they had a Miss Pac-Man arcade game set up in the entranceway.
So that was really your motivation.
Yeah, like, and I stink at video games, but, and this is weird, I enjoyed watching my brother play video games my whole childhood, so it was fun.
I feel like we have very similar childhoods because my older brother, I think I was bad, but I think I was bad because he never actually let me play. He was like, you can sit here and watch me play Mario Brothers. It'll be really fun.
I think my brother was kind of similar, except
Yeah.
like it was mutual. Like my brother was like, you want to watch me play, right? Not play. I was like, yeah, you're right. Because I don't want to play Metal Gear Solid. I just want you to play, and I'll drink Sunkist and eat popcorn.
Awesome. Well, that was fun. I'm not really sure how it connected to the rest of our lives, but other than digging Miss Pac-Man, let's talk about something else we're digging.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
It's crazy. This could have been the first, middle, and last what we're digging all the time. It's easy to overlook, right?
Yes. Yeah. So we were just talking before we started recording about how it's easy to overlook because we use it every single day in our jobs, in our personal lives. When I was teaching, probably when you were teaching too, you were utilizing it to some capacity.
Yeah.
But this week's what we're digging is Google Docs, but really the whole Google suite of tools. And how would we use it in a classroom? Well, I taught for about 10 years. And during that time period, I used Docs on the regular. It was something that my students could collaborate in easily without having to send each other like, oh, here's the latest update of our document that I'm working on, or here's the latest update of our presentation slides, right? Like I think back to college and how much my undergraduate years could have been a little bit easier as opposed to, well, here's the external hard drive that has our updated presentation on it that I emailed to you or I brought to our work session. But when you do it in Google Slides or Google Docs, then everybody just has the latest version.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I utilized most when I was a teacher was Google Forms.
Yeah, tell us about that a little bit.
Google Forms were my weekly assessment solution. I had a quiz every Friday because I wanted to do some game planning over the weekend of where my kids were at. So that was my checkpoint was weekly. And there was other formative pieces within there, but that formative assessment piece was a constant. Back in those days, back in my day, which is 3 years ago, was using Flubaroo extensively as an extension on the spreadsheet that the Google form would populate to grade and send feedback to my students by email. And I was not in a Google for Education school district. So it was great because I didn't need to have my students have an account. I just asked for their name. I could back up real quick, and Google Forms is a form field entry tool that allows you to create surveys and quizzes. And nowadays, it even has the quiz feature built into it. And if you are a Google for Education school, it works really, really well to automatically identify who those students are, allow them to go back and revise the submissions that they entered, and the dashboard has come a really long way to where you can visualize the responses as they come in. So I could even imagine utilizing it live in the classroom. In fact, I've utilized it in several sessions that I've run with teachers as a live formative assessment tool and just project the results up on the screen or whatever, and kind of live walk through the results and let it change the course of our session depending on what attitudes are or what prior knowledge is of participants and everything like that. So I'm a Google Forms guy.
Google Forms
and I know,
for life.
I know you are too, that you dig forms. Our colleague Stacy Shue is like a forms wizard. She's
She
a
should
wizard
put that
of a
on
lot
her
of things.
resume.
Like a Google Forms wizard?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's give her a badge for that.
Yeah. All the badges, all the extensions for forms. She really she utilizes Autocrat a lot, which is you can turn Google Form data that goes to a spreadsheet. You can have it generate mail merges within Docs. So it automatically does the string replacements that you set up so that you can create, reports and everything like that. So I think, Erin, one of my favorite things about the G Suite is what they call it now, is that it's productivity tools in a collaborative space that are open to interpretation on how you utilize it for collaborating and learning, right?
Yeah. And they're free.
Yeah, they're free.
That's like the best part.
Yeah.
Mic drop. We're done. I'm in just a giddy mood to be recording this afternoon. It makes me happy to record podcasts.
Me
So we are going to be chatting with a good friend of mine and one of my former colleagues by the name of Erin Mastin. And Erin is an amazing third grade teacher in Boyne City at Boyne City Elementary School. And she, I think, has a really unique situation as a teacher in that she has taught everything from kindergarten through 8th grade. And I feel like that's not a place that a lot of teachers have been in, right? Maybe
Sure.
they've been in everything kind of secondary or all elementary, but K-8 is a pretty wide range. And I think the really cool part about that is that she's got a lot of ideas, but when she's thinking about things and when I've done professional development or presentations with her in the past, she's got a really good mind for not only how does this work in elementary schools, but what does it look like in the middle and high school classrooms too? So she can really wrap her brain around those things, which I think sometimes is difficult for us. Even though we're all teachers, it can be a really different environment between those two. So she's always fun to chat with. I always feel like I'm learning something from her. And we know that you're going to walk away from her interview with some ideas that you can just take right back to your classroom and implement right away. Welcome, girl. We know that your time is limited, so we'll kind of jump in. Our first question is a little random, but our podcast is called Campfire. So, first question: did you ever go to summer camp as a kid?
Yes, I went to summer camp as a camper, and I was also a counselor, Camp Daggett.
At Camp Daggett.
Oh.
Okay.
Yes.
So, Jeff, you don't know about Camp Daggett, but it's a local camp on beautiful Walloon Lake in northern Michigan. And I feel like lots of northern Michiganders have a special place in their heart for Camp Daggett.
Mm-hmm. It is the best summer adventure that a kid could have.
Do you feel
What was camp like?
Camp, it was pretty stereotypical. Like you do swimming, canoeing, sailing, you have a nature time, arts and crafts, and then you have like a rec time. You sing songs, you go on campouts. It's pretty traditional, but it was awesome. And I've made friends. I have friends from when I went there as a kid that I still talk to today. So pretty crazy.
That's amazing.
Cool. Yeah.
Your summers took place in movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Essentially.
My life is pretty much a movie.
Yeah, movie star.
Unfortunately, I don't get paid like a movie star, but that's coming. I'm waiting.
Erin, do you feel like being a counselor there kind of was eye-opening into education? I mean, I know your dad was a teacher. Was your mom a teacher too?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so both your
Lots
parents
of
were
teachers
teachers.
in my family.
Do you feel like being a counselor at Camp Daggett kind of was a lead-in to teaching, or not so much?
Yeah, for sure. No, it was, because I actually was a counselor the summer after my freshman year at college. So I really, I knew I wanted to go into education, but getting trapped into a cabin with 12 kids, it definitely solidifies that, or totally says, no, I'm not doing this. So it was good because having to deal with all different types of children, and then you do different age groups too. So I usually was with the younger kids. I think I was better with them. So they would give me the younger cabins a lot, and you get to see all different types of backgrounds, because even though a lot of the kids are from northern Michigan, there are quite a few that come from downstate and from all over, even out of state. So it was a good experience.
That's cool. So one of the things that we asked you kind of before to just get your brain rolling and kind of help us get prepped to was something that was going on in your now quote unquote camp in your classroom, and something that you were excited about. And one of the things that you kind of talked about was just this idea of competency-based learning. So I guess to start with, what sparked your interest in competency-based learning?
No, it's not an easy word. Well, we did a Ed chat on it a couple weeks ago, and just jumping into that and talking to some teachers. There's a principal in Fraser, Michigan, that I think really prides himself on having a school that practices competency-based learning. You know, they were all in there talking, giving examples, and showing classrooms. And I just thought, you know, that's something that I've been thinking about a lot with my experiences as a teacher. I've taught everything from kindergarten to 8th grade, and literally everything from kindergarten to 8th grade. And the one thing that I noticed when coming from the middle school down to the elementary was how fine-tuned teachers are to what each kid needs in their classroom. And with the competency-based learning, you work on what does that kid need right now? What is he, you know, where are they at in their learning? And you meet them, and you individualize their learning for them, and that's great. And you meet them where they're at, but you're also challenging them. You're tweaking things for each student or small groups of students. And I think it gives the students everything that they need. Now, it gets more complicated as you get older kids because the gaps widen, or it's not, you know, something that you can get away with as easily, you know, in the sense of, okay, I'm pulling this group and they might be low, and some kids will notice that they're always being pulled, and that kind of becomes a stigma for them. But, you know, if you just try to take that stuff out of it and look at, okay, what does this kid need? How can I push this kid? Well, how can I pull this kid? It really made sense to me. And I feel like the older the kids are that I teach, the more and more I get away from that. I'm like, why do I keep doing that? Why can't I teach everything like I taught first grade? But it doesn't always work because of the way we have our school structured. So it's something that I'm trying to wrap my brain around and try to figure out how I can do that in 3rd grade.
Do you feel like there's some things that you're already doing in your classroom that are, you know, I think like you said, Jeff and I were actually talking about this earlier. So Fraser is a competency-based district. So thinking about, well, there's a lot of support. There's probably been a lot of professional development. And I know that the Ed Twitter chat is an excellent source of kind of personal learning, personal professional development. But what kinds of things are you already doing within the kind of standard school structure that you feel like are already maybe just slight moves, but moves or progress towards competency-based?
Well, we do have groups of kids, or we'll do stations, and that allows you to take smaller chunks of students and meet them where they're at in their learning, instead of whole group lessons where you're just speaking to the class in general. We also have programs that allow the kid to go in the direction that's needed for them, whether it's on our iPad or if it's on computer, something like we've got Front Row or Extra Math, these different apps that we use. And the kids that are high flyers can really take off and meet their goals. Kids that need more support can get the help in these programs. So that's kind of nice. The technology allows us to do that a lot. We've also started to concentrate on doing STEM activities. And I think these are really great activities in math and science for us to do because it does allow kids to kind of take things in their own direction. You know, you have a task that you have to complete, and some kids will complete it in the simplest form, and that's just where they are, and that's just their brain. And then other kids will come up with this really complicated way to complete the task, and it just gives them that freedom and that creativity that I'm looking for in my instruction. So,
hey, Erin, what kind of skills and habits do you think that students need to develop in order to thrive in a mastery-based environment or competency-based school or district like that?
I think a lot of it starts with that growth mindset where, yeah, this is hard, but how am I going to get through it? How can I, persevere? How can I struggle but learn something from it? How can I encourage my friends? Different things like that. We've started our growth mindset program here in Boyne this year in third grade, and we really talk to the kids about, this is, my kids, if you ask them, what kind of classroom is this? And they'll say, it's a mistake-making classroom. They know that it's okay to make mistakes, that nobody's going to laugh at them, that that's how we grow, that's how we learn things that we didn't know before, and it challenges us. So accepting those challenges and pushing through to learn what we need to learn, I think is important. I also think, in this, they have to be able to self-evaluate a lot of the time, and say, okay, what am I good at and what am I struggling with, and how can I be proactive in my learning? And that's just something that I think comes naturally as they get older, but it also has to be encouraged by the teacher, because a lot of them are just so used to, oh, I'm not good at this, I'm going to avoid it and I'm going to give up. So it's something that we have to teach them.
I like that you bring up self-evaluation, that metacognitive process for students. That being said, it's probably an everyday skill building session for you if you're trying to instill that in students.
Yeah.
A lot of adults struggle with reflecting on their own learning, right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm interested in how you think about feedback to students. With a mastery-based learning model or a competency-based learning model, students need personalized feedback that's informed by formative assessment, right?
Right.
I'm really interested in some of the stuff that you're doing to support students individually like that.
Well, a lot of the times, we test a lot nowadays. And as much as I like to avoid it and get around it, I can't. It's part of my job. It's a requirement. So what we try to do with the tests is first, make sure that the kids understand why we're giving it. What's the goal of it? Who's going to benefit from it? What information are we going to take from it? And then we also like to make sure that we share the results with the students so that they can look at it and see, okay, what did I do good in? What could I improve? And we try to approach it in a positive manner instead of saying, what did I fail? What can you work on? And so from that information, setting goals. For instance, we have a data wall in my room, and we track who has completed certain tasks. We use a math program called IXL. And so once they've completed something in IXL, we track that. And we try to set a goal. Okay, I'd like to be done with this. We also take their math facts. And multiplication and division are huge in third grade. We're learning those facts. Let's set a goal for ourselves. How many can we master in 1 minute? Or maybe you can do it so you set it up. I know my ones, my twos, my threes, all the way up to my fives. I want to know that in the next month. When it comes to reading, setting a goal for fluency, setting a goal for words read correctly, that kind of thing, or their reading level, trying to get them to be engaged in their own learning and responsible for their own learning, because that's important too. So we set goals a lot of the times.
Erin, I'm going to pick your brain on that for just a second, because,
Sure.
When I was teaching 8th graders, I was asking them to set goals, and it was a really big struggle for them, because I think it's something that students at the 8th grade level, most students don't do a whole lot of. So can you kind of walk us through, I get the process of, I want to know these by this time frame. Do you guys revisit them? Do you put them someplace that they see them frequently? Because I'm also really kind of nerdy about how do you reach your goals and how do you help other people reach their goals too?
Yeah. And the other part of it too, I try not to post too much stuff on the wall because I also think it's private too. So my data wall is pretty small, but at this age, we talk a lot about getting the kids to acknowledge that, okay, you might be good at one thing, but I'm better at this. I have strengths where you have weaknesses and vice versa. And so we talk about just because this child isn't where you are doesn't mean that they're not trying their best. We also do things like we have a buddy who can encourage and support if you need help in things, if you are wanting, some extra motivation on your test, maybe holding you also accountable. I try to buddy friends up. And so far that's worked, just because a friend is somebody that you can be vulnerable with and get encouragement from, and it's not going to be, they're not going to look down on you, or you're not going to feel like they're looking down on you. So try to do it that way, but setting it up, I think if I had older kids, it might be more private, just because I think, back when I was teaching middle school, they're so self-conscious. That's like, the age of where everything matters. And so maybe a personal data wall is something that you just keep, your own records, and trying to teach them to be accountable it's tough at this age. So we try to do it with small things, and, it kind of looks like bribery sometimes, maybe, where you're, giving rewards, but it's also, it's whatever you got to do to get them to get in that habit of setting goals.
But I'm sure some of the rewards are intrinsic too. They just feel better about themselves. They're proud of themselves for reaching those goals, even if that's not something that they're cognizant of. It's such a great skill to be teaching them too.
Mm-hmm. Right. We did these this year, I think second and third grade did it. I'm not sure about first grade, but we started doing these things called brag tags. And so you get these like metal necklaces or metal chains, and you get a tag every time you accomplish whatever the teacher has set up. Like for me, it's, when you pass a section of IXL math, you get a brag tag. When you get 3 greens in a row for your multiplication facts, you get a brag tag. In spelling, they get a brag tag for a certain percentage on their spelling test. And so the kids get to wear these. We have a Rambler recognition day once a month, and they get to wear these necklaces to the ceremonies and kind of brag and boast about how well they're doing. And we do also, we give brag tags for, you get one if it's your birthday, you get one on a holiday. So it's not like kids won't have any, especially for some kids that struggle a lot, our special ed population. They're able to, we can adjust what they earn brag tags for, so they can feel success in whatever area they're working in. So.
I think it's so awesome how you set up this environment where, like, practically you can't be the personalizing agent for every single student, right? Like it just can't happen. So you leverage the power of collaboration to do that, and by opening up that door, the thought that comes to mind for you is, okay, like, this is extremely vulnerable. Like we need to, like, vulnerability either cripples or empowers.
Definitely.
So, like, thinking about how we get excited about looking at our successes and warts and not seeing those failures as something to hide or be embarrassed about, but that it's just simple growth. By making it a collaborative effort, like your students realize that everyone has them.
Right.
As a culture, we can have an eye on just improving in our own individual ways and supporting each other with that. I just think, like, the way that the social aspect feeds the personalizing necessity is just so cool.
Well, and, like, we spend a lot of time at the beginning of the year setting up that environment in our classroom. We do just silly challenges. We did this one activity where they had, I think, like 3 or 4 hula hoops, and they had to move the whole class from one end of the basketball court to the other, and they couldn't leave the hula hoops. So they had to figure out how they could get everybody across by moving it. So it was good because they failed.
It was awesome.
It was awesome. We set them up to fail. It was great. But we did things like that. Some of them did succeed, but as soon as somebody failed, we stopped. When we were all done, we talked about it. And we got the kids realizing, and through different activities too, that it's okay to fail because we learned. And then whenever we did fail, we would do the activity again and say, okay, now take what you learned and let's try it again. And that's why I really like STEM activities too, because, there's that whole scientific process, that the engineering process where you try and you fail, but you fail and you learn from it so that you can go back and fix it. Nothing is a one and done here. You've got another shot. And so we spend a lot of time at the beginning of the year setting up that kind of environment in our classroom. We talk about, I always tell my kids that, like, this is our home. We're here a lot together, a lot. And, if it's messy, we can't live we can't move around and live that way. We have to look out for each other. We have to be nice to each other. And we're constantly working on that, on keeping this environment positive and encouraging.
Shall we play a game?
No, you couldn't quite locate or explain. No, you couldn't quite locate or explain.
Are you ready to play some trivia with us?
Oh my gosh. Sure.
Okay.
A little nervous, but
it's gonna be all good because I have selected some trivia that you have a lot of background knowledge on.
okay.
And
Wait, you did or Jeff did? Because I'm more nervous if Jeff did it.
yeah. So
Okay.
I don't know what that means. I don't know how I should take that, but
Well, I would be afraid.
go
Like,
way
I know
back,
how much
Jeff.
you like Star Wars and stuff, and I'm not a Star Wars buff, and I don't want you to throw something in like that on me or something. But okay, I'm ready.
we
What do you
won't
got?
ruin your street cred
Okay.
as far as Star Wars goes.
No,
Okay.
for sure. So while I give you this little intro, we're going to make sure Jeff has his awesome app, his sound effects app set up and ready to rock. So Jeff, this is me stalling
Oh,
to make
good
sure
call.
you're good to go there.
So
Erin,
get that.
your trivia today is on Michigan State University. Go
Oh.
Green.
You go white. All right, I can do this.
And
Mhm.
no pressure, but Rochelle is up next for our next episode.
Oh no.
And
Okay.
I have some U of M trivia in the works for her.
Okay. Make
So,
it hard. Make it hard. Mhm.
If this already weren't important, well, now it's even more important. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah. Now the stress is really on. Okay.
So some questions are multiple choice where I thought maybe you might need a little help to kind of clarify some things.
Okay.
And some are not because in my mind, as a not Michigan State University graduate, but somebody who lived nearby and is a state fan, I figured you could get them. So
Okay.
Michigan State University, or I think its first name was like the Agricultural School of Michigan, something awesome
Yeah.
like that,
It was a
was
college.
founded in, and I'm going to give you some choices, 1865, 1901, 1875, or 1855.
That would be 1855, ma'am.
You are excellent.
Oh my God. Wow. Is that a real air horn?
It kind of sounds like it does.
It is. Woo.
Woo! 1 for 1. Good work,
Your
girl.
ears open now?
Yeah, I'm
you
ready.
listening?
Yeah.
Okay.
If I wasn't
All right.
deaf before.
You have twin boys and a daughter. That's right in your norm.
Yeah.
All right, question 2. MSU has how many buildings on campus? 243, 625, 100, or 545?
Oh man. Okay, give them to me again. I gotta write them down. I'm visual.
Okay, 243,
Okay.
625,
Okay.
100, or 545?
Oh.
No Googling.
Okay. Oh.
She's like, I have
shoot.
to write those down.
Yeah.
that I
We're
can ask
listening for
Siri.
keystrokes right now.
Man, okay, so on the campus, oh Lord, I'm going to go with 243. But my second guess was 545.
That would have got you some ham horn.
All right. That's all right. That's all right. That's only question 2. Okay. Question 3 is an easy one. The mascot for Michigan State University is?
Party.
Yeah. Right. All right. Question 4. So you're 2 for 3. Approximately how many students currently attend MSU? 40,000, 50,000, 60,000, or 70,000?
Oh, man. I'm going to go with 70,000. That's many. Maybe.
I feel like it's a little bit nicer than me being like, wrong. All good. I think you're going to rock these next 3 questions. So there's 3 more. There's actually 50,000 students that currently attend between undergrad and graduate programs. So, all right, question 5. MSU is first in the nation for what graduate program? Engineering, elementary and secondary ed, business administration, or criminal justice?
Well, I would say elementary and secondary ed. I think you should put that in Rochelle's questioning, too.
Just throw her off a little bit. I might have to think I'm going to put a star next to that on my notes. Jeff, are there, so Jeff records from the sound booth. Can people hear the ham horn outside or not really, do you think?
I don't know. I'm usually not aware of what people observe me doing or not doing. I don't think anyone can hear.
All right, Erin, question 6 is an easy one. Who is the men's basketball coach?
Tom Izzo. Oh, Lord. Do you know, here's a fun fact. Do you know that Tom Izzo came up to Boyne City and spoke at our sports banquet? Back when I was
did
in
not.
high school?
When was that?
Back when I was in high school. I'm not
I
giving you
remember he was in Boyne last year. Remember, because the Day family was like stalking him and trying to find him to take a picture with him.
Yes. He's been here many times.
That's awesome.
All
right. Question 7 kind of connects to men's basketball. How many Final Four appearances, Final Four, has the men's basketball team had? 6, 7, 8, or 9?
I'm going to go with 7. How many?
They've had 9.
9.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Were you there, like in the Mateen Cleaves Flint?
Yes, I was. And
Okay.
they actually won the national championship on my birthday that year.
Oh my gosh. As a birthday present for you.
My 21st birthday, even.
So it was a really good birthday present.
Really fun. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Wow. 4 out of 7. That's not bad.
Not great.
We'll have to see what Rochelle does. And
Make those questions really hard.
the good news is your podcast probably will not yet be released when we do ours with her. So I'm thinking some similar questions, and then we'll see how she can stack up. Right.
I have a suggestion. You could ask her which U of M football coach spoke in Boyne City, Michigan. See if she knows that.
Which one was it?
Lloyd Carr.
All right. Got it.
So I think what we're going to do, we'll publish both of the podcasts, and then we'll go over, right and wrong and celebrate your achievements. And then we'll talk about growth areas for the both of you. And we'll just have to be a little vulnerable and kind of lean into it.
And whoever wins gets brag tags.
Yes. Okay, that sounds great. I know if she wins, she will be bragging. For sure. I will never hear the end of it.
Jeff, I think it's probably pretty critical at this point that we get both of them published before McCall. Like that has to be our deadline, our time frame. And then maybe there can be like
an arm wrestling match after.
Whoever loses has to wear their the Mish Ed shirt in the color of the opposing school.
I don't own one. I do not own that one.
I have a
I'm
blue
sure
and
you
yellow
each could bring one for each other.
that I hide.
Oh my God. I don't know if my body could handle it.
You break out in hives.
I might start itching all over.
Well, thanks so much for taking time out of your prep hour to chat with us.
I appreciate you thinking of me. Oh.
Of course. We're excited about the things that you're doing. Just listening to you, I'm like, these are so cool. I love the idea of the mistake-making classroom and just really changing that mindset from mistakes are,
Bad.
fatal and I can't
Wrong.
recover from them to they're a part of learning.
Oh, yeah, because Lord knows I make enough of them in front of my kids. So it was beneficial for me to do this for myself as well.
It's all about self-preservation, really.
Yeah, I said, see, I made that mistake just to show you guys. It can be done. So thank you guys.
Well, thanks again. We'll let you go enjoy a couple of minutes of quiet time and getting anything that you need to get ready. But we'll chat with you soon.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Hello there. Today, we want to talk to you about asking questions, because asking questions is a good way to find out about things like go gaze, observe.
So, after having our conversation with Erin, that's kind of cool. You and I were kind of talking about this competency education thing, and we got to talking, and one of our colleagues, Kelli Hixon, is one of our fellow blended coaches, and she, in a previous life for almost 20 years, was teaching in Fraser School District, and during her time there, she was an elementary teacher, various grades across the elementary. She was also a Title I interventionist and a 21st century teacher, which means that she was in this half coach, half teacher role. And Fraser Schools is a competency ed school district. And we even talked a little bit about that in our interview with Erin. So we thought that for our Campfire cues, we would bring on Kelli and have her address some questions that Erin and I came up with, Erin L., not Erin M., to kind of extend the conversation based upon what Erin M. kind of articulated she was doing in her own classroom. So some of the guiding questions we came up with were, what are the challenges that Kelli experienced in her work with school districts shifting to competency-based learning? And then also, if individual teachers are interested, like Erin clearly is, what are some things that they can do in their own classroom to start taking on some of the tenets of competency ed and kind of influence it from the grassroots level like that? So we joined up with Kelli, and you're going to hear her next. Hey, Kelli, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, not a problem.
For our listeners, we set up for them that you have a background in competency-based education, but could you tell a little bit about your background in competency-based education from a first-person perspective?
Absolutely. So I was a teacher in Fraser for 19 years, and before Fraser got on board with a district-wide approach to competency-based education, I worked to try to adopt it within my own classroom. At the time, I was teaching 5th grade, really just thinking of what is it that I want students to learn, making them have ownership of that learning, and then linking it to specific competencies from the content standards that I had within 5th grade. And it was a lot of fun within my own classroom. Of course, when it's in your own classroom, you have certain liberties because implementing on a larger scale is a little more tricky. I could, within my own classroom, kind of make a lot of decisions that would help with that. And it was fun. The kids responded well to it. I did notice right away that they took a lot more ownership over their own learning. I started with math. And they just kind of worked at their pace and went on to the next skill when they were ready, and it helped me keep constant tabs on where students were and who needed help and who needed me to push them further and all that. So then when Fraser got on board with it and decided that they were going to go district-wide with competency-based education, I kind of felt like I had a little bit of a leg up, but it's, like I said, a lot different when you go to implement it, in an entire district. So I spent, my first 2 years that we had started in the district, I was in the classroom. I kind of worked to help other teachers in the building that I was in transitioning. And then after that, I transitioned myself to a role where I was a 21st century teacher. So I spent half of my time working with teachers and really helping them with a lot of coaching support and professional development that went around competency-based education and blended learning. So I was able to spend a lot of time not only doing it in my own classroom, but then helping other teachers figure out the best ways to make it happen and helping the district make intentional decisions about how to make it work within the district. Since then, I transitioned about, a little over a year ago now, I guess, to Michigan Virtual, where we've been in different classrooms and buildings where teachers, whether it be individual teachers trying to implement competency-based learning or sometimes at the building level. And it's always a good challenge to help rethink how people can do things to help students. So it's been a good. I feel like I've had a nice, well-rounded background with competency-based education, and I have good feelings about it.
So Kelli, that leads me to a question. You were talking about how your students took pretty well to it. Mm-hmm. One of our questions that we do want to talk about are just kind of like overall challenges. And one thought I always had as a teacher when I was trying to start moving to competency-based, but I wasn't totally there. Our district was certainly not there, was how do parents respond to that? Mm-hmm. And what were some of the things maybe that you thought were done well in your district to kind of educate parents so that they were ready to handle it too moving forward?
Right. Yes. Parents, it was definitely a challenge because they're used to a traditional system. And so when that looks different, that's tough for parents to kind of swallow. And so one thing that I learned, sometimes the hard way, when I was doing it individually in my classroom is communication. Just a ton of communication was key to helping parents feel a part of it, and really working with the students to help them advocate for themselves and for their learning, to help parents be able to see that, this is really to their kids' advantage, to be able to say, hey, this is our way of being able to say, we're going to take you where you're at and help you to be able to move on when you're ready, not when the rest of the class is moving on with a particular skill. So a lot of it was how it was approached, and lack of communication was really one of the ways that you can make it a bigger challenge than it needs to be, whether it's district-wide or whether it be in an individual teacher's classroom. Is communicating with parents, communicating with the students all the time about expectations and how it's working, and then also with administration. That's probably one of the most important things I've taken out of it.
Hey, Kelli, how did you feel making the shift from communicating about how a student was performing, talking in terms of competency versus, tests and letter marks and grades? I'm thinking especially at parent-teacher conferences and things like that. Mm-hmm. With competency-based education and competencies tied to learning, I imagine the conversations are a little bit different.
Definitely. One thing that I kind of made a connection in my own head, I have a background in early childhood, and so for the first 8 years of my career, I taught first grade. And in a lot of ways, that was the closest I was to competency-based without really thinking of it that way or really making a conscious effort to transition to that, because there are no letter grades at that age. It's very developmental. You take a look at where students are, whether it be, let's say, for instance, language arts. You take a student where they're at and move them on when they're ready, which is a lot of the premise of competency-based education. When I started teaching in the upper grades, that's when you go to more of a traditional grading system. And I always struggled with it, which is probably because of my background with early childhood and thinking of things more developmentally. And so a lot of times when I would speak with parents personally, I would look at the letter grades as a talking point that would lead to where the student was with really competencies. When I think about it, I wasn't thinking of it that way at the time, but I feel like I've always, when I speak with parents, spoken that language. When parents, I feel like, look at a competency-based reporting system versus a traditional reporting system, that competency-based system gives them so much more information. So that's not too difficult, I felt, to transition to, because it kind of spells out exactly where students are. The tough thing is those parents that were used to, maybe if their student wasn't performing well enough to master a concept or to prove competency, then there would be, sometimes some interesting conversations about homework grades versus, can my student get extra credit? Can my student, thinking more of how traditionally on a 100-point scale that students would be able to get around not knowing certain skills and moving on. So that was probably the biggest challenges.
Hearing you say that, Kelli, reminds me of one of the first times I was kind of exposed to standards-based grading, which I think has a lot of similarities. And it was Dave Tebow. He had come up to speak at Boyne Tech conference. And the thing that he said has just always stuck with me. He's like, so my kid can't do this math problem, but because he brought in 4 boxes of Kleenex, he's passing your class right now. Mm-hmm. That doesn't make sense. And I was like, I was never a teacher that gave extra credit for Kleenex anyways, but we all know, come like March, the Kleenex supply is gone in our schools and extra boxes are nice to have. But it just really made me think about, how are we doing this? And we're doing this completely in the wrong way. Mm-hmm. So it's funny that you talk about those parents that are like, but what about extra credit?
Right. I mean, and that's the system they grew up in. And so that's all they know. That's their background knowledge. And so to some parents, it was unheard of that there couldn't be a way around a student just not being ready to move on with something. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it led to some sometimes heated conversations with parents, but I've always felt so strongly that it's in the best interest of students that I never had a difficult time, I guess, defending it, for lack of a better term.
Would you point to that as one of the biggest challenges of going district-wide with a competency initiative?
I teach elementary school, and so that's where my experience comes from. But I would say from the district perspective, a huge challenge is these students who are in high school and looking to get into colleges, because they are used to having a 4-point scale that is very translatable to the college readiness and college acceptance, and what you're ranking within your class, and the grading system. Well, how do you transition that? You almost have to have, in the meantime, have a way of translating that original traditional grading, so that you can provide that information to colleges. So that was kind of a parents were concerned definitely about that, especially as their students were older and older and thinking about getting into college. So that was an interesting challenge. The other biggest challenge to me is just besides the making sure everyone's on board, because within any system you're going to have people who are gung-ho early adopters, and you're going to have people who are going to resist. Adoption of big changes is breaking from a traditional system is a lot to ask. The other big thing, though, is our current system isn't ideal for competency-based. When you think of what a school day looks like, a fixed 7-hour day, that a lot of things revolve around that, whether it be food service, transportation, those kinds of things. When you are truly talking about a competency-based system, you're going to rethink those things. And, Fraser was going, when I transitioned to my job here at Michigan Virtual, they were in the midst of having some really big discussions and making some really big decisions about what the school day was going to look like and how that was going to be very different from the traditional day as we all think of it.
At Fraser, they were having those discussions.
Yeah, and some districts don't go that far with it, but to truly, really do it with fidelity, you have to think about that some students are going to need more or less as far as hours go. They're going to need, a different structure to the day. Right now, you're going by age pretty much is how the system is organized, and that's not where competencies lie. We all know that. Any grade that I taught, I had such a range of students in my classroom as far as all the different content areas and skills that were required. So there's a lot of rethinking that has to be done, and a lot of failing forward to make sure that we're not holding ourselves back because of a traditional structure that maybe needs to be rethought of.
Well, cool. Thanks, Kelli.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Unless Erin wants to grill you with more questions.
No, I don't. But it's really nice to have a look at inside of what does it look like in both capacities, from the kind of I'm just going to do this on my own because I think it's the right thing to do before your district had moved to that. But also then what does it look like when it's an entire district kind of overhaul? So thank you for that perspective.
Mm-hmm. I'll have to give Erin Mastin a call and see if she'll let us raid her classroom and check out what she's doing, because it sounds exciting.
It's very cool. I've been in her classroom a couple of times, and I just always enjoy being in there and watching the way that she does things. So cool. Come on up,
yeah,
girl.
Absolutely.
And Jeff, you can come too.
We'll let you go.
And if you have a question for us, we'd love to hear from you. We love getting questions from you all about what's going on in your classrooms or in your districts or things that you're struggling with. You can use Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat to get in touch with us. And all you have to do is within your post, put a little hashtag Campfire Q. That's Campfire and then just the letter Q, like for question, so that we see it and that we can answer it. And obviously, if you do, we'll send you some pretty sweet swag, including the one and only highly coveted MVU Happy Camper coffee mug.
That's a trophy to have and to enjoy every single morning.
It is. My husband has just commandeered that mug. It's no longer even an option for me.
It's kind of like the reviews are consistent. There's no one that hates that mug. So
there's friends
get the
of
mug
mine
that no one hates.
Yeah. No, there's friends of mine who are like, where is that? What is that mug and where did you buy it? Like, oh, we got it. And it actually is talking about day camp. They're like, I love it. I want one. So,
absolutely. So before we punt.
Yeah, go for it.
We're going to be at McCall. And
we're excited to be at McCall.
Yeah. So McCall is the premier educational technology conference for the state of Michigan.
What is, quick pop quiz, what does McCall stand for?
Michigan, I'll come back to A, computers, and I'll skip you and go learning.
You're close.
What is it?
I think it's the Michigan Association for Computer Users in Learning.
Yeah. So I got some of the letters correct.
You totally did. Can I just say why I love McCall? Because
it sounds like a bird.
Yeah.
McCall.
That's a macaw, I think.
I'm all sorts of wrong.
Close. So I feel like there's an energy that kind of is just circulating at McCall where people are getting fired up. And, it's that time of year right before spring break where everybody's feeling a little cabin fevery. The weather's maybe just starting to break and get a little bit warmer for us here in Michigan. But there's just this energy of teachers who are learning and are sharing and are excited to go back to their classrooms with things that they can use to really influence and impact student learning. And it's awesome. And then your head explodes when you're driving home and trying to figure everything out that you just learned about.
It's always good to be able to connect in a space that's overwhelmingly enthusiastic, right?
Yes.
Say what you want, but there's a time and place for conversations with non-like-minded individuals, but it's energizing to have a conversation with people that are just generally positive and enthusiastic about the same things that you are. So over the course of time, I just enjoy the conversations. I love the sessions. I love learning from the mechanisms that are intended there, but I really appreciate the informal learning that goes on there too.
Yeah, just that connect. I always joke that, so a lot of us as educators have built up our personal learning network on Twitter, and there's those people that you're like, I think I know that person from Twitter. I think we've had a conversation, but it's cool to see those people face to face and make those connections too.
Yeah. So
anyways,
McCall is March 15th through the 17th this year of 2017 is the year that we're in. And
in Detroit.
We're going to be, it's in Detroit at Kobo. And we're going to be all over the place there, Erin.
That's for sure. Yeah.
MBU will have a booth in the vendor space, and we'll probably be hanging out there a little bit. We've got tons of sessions. What do we have? We have 4 sessions across the 3 days.
Yeah.
And the first session is a half-day pre-conference on the 15th. So our topics are going to be on blended learning, open educational resources, and using tech strategically. And you can find our sessions, find us in the vendor hall, find us on the street going to get lunch someplace. Make sure that you stop by, say hi, tell us who you are.
And then maybe we should, what if we did a live podcast from McCall?
That'd be cool.
Wheels are turning.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool.
We could find some time between all of the things that we need to do.
Between 4 presentations and yeah. Let's figure that out. That could be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as always, thanks for listening. And remember that we put out some show notes each week. So if you heard something either in our chat with Kelli or our chat with Erin, or you just want to know a little bit more about Google Drive or Google Docs or Forms or Autocrat or all those awesome things that we've been chatting about, check out the show notes. We'll give you links. We'll give you a little bit more context or kind of help you find spaces where you can learn more too.
And lastly, we'd love it if you subscribe to our podcast so that you can keep on listening. We are available wherever you are listening to this podcast. So if there is a subscribe option, please do that so that we can revisit you. And leave a review in iTunes. That'd be super cool of you.
That'd be really cool. Then other people could find our show too.
Yeah. Every little bit helps.
Yeah. Awesome. Wow. Hey, dude. It was fun.
Yeah. Talk soon.
Sounds good.
Bye. I was trying to be you. It didn't work too well.
Bye. Like that. Peace out.